Hey, welcome, America. This is Skip Wiley, your moderator for today's most important call. And welcome to episode 42 of the 5-Year Real Estate Career Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that I think is vitally important, both in life and in business, and that's trends. And we're going to talk about trends that will impact 2025 in the real estate industry. But before we get started, I just want to take a minute and I want you to think with me. Imagine, if you can, that you're starting a real estate business in today's environment, a business that creates quality, consistent leads. And leads, by the way, are the lifeblood of any successful business. And a business that actually allows you to create a business that in 5 short years will pay you abundantly for the rest of your life. Sounds like hype. A lot of people think impossible, but there are multiple companies out there today, new trend real estate companies that have created concepts that actually allow agents like us to be able to sell a lot of real estate and create a business that will fund them long after they decide to retire from the real estate career. So welcome to the 5-Year Real Estate Career Podcast. We are a webinar, a virtual seminar every single time. And we want to invite you to learn more about us. And you can do that by simply going to our YouTube channel. And that's at the symbol at 5-Year Career. So in the next 30 minutes, we're going to cover some engaging topics. The first is rising interest rates. The market is shifting. It's squeezing leads. You're going to learn how to turn challenges into opportunities with some proven strategies that we've developed. Secondly, you're going to discover some new markets, some really hidden profit markets like affordable housing, accessory dwelling, and we're going to talk about financing those, some creative financing options. By the way, these are tools that all top producers in this industry use to survive and to thrive. And finally, we're going to talk about AI in today's call, automation, funnels, innovative marketing strategies that will grow your pipeline. And isn't that what all of us want? A 5-year career, something that will generate revenue while we're working and quickly develop a lifestyle of freedom. So with that, I want to move quickly to the first trend that we're going to talk about on today's call. And I'm going to turn that over to Eric. And Eric, let's talk about the real estate rental market and how that has impacted 2024 and what major impact it's going to have on 2025.
Hey, thanks, Skip. Before I get started, because, you made a great comment, the trend is your friend if you know what's going on. And if you're a part of it, the trend is your friend, especially if you have time. And most people don't realize the time as it goes by. And here we are talking about compressing that in a 5-year period. So, did you know that over 60% of Americans are burdened with significant debt, right? And I just read a recent story that the average household owes over $90,000. Remember the old examples they used to say, imagine a $100,000 house. Imagine owning a house and not owning it as a renter. Did you also know that the average net worth of a homeowner is not 2 times, not 10 times, not 20, but 40 times greater than that of a renter? And so these things that we're highlighting, and that high interest rates and inflation, which we're going to talk about in today's podcast as well, in 2024 were the silent wealth killers. A lot of people, especially on fixed income and that are retired, was a very tough year for them in 2024. And also, did you know that the tax management cost Americans, or tax mismanagement, I should say, cost Americans an estimated $200 billion in lost wealth building opportunities? And you know that real estate's the best way to make that up. And here's the thing. As you said, we're going to start talking, first of all, about rising rental demand. With rising interest rates, the inflation outpacing salaries. This year's trends not only shape markets, but also highlighted the strategies that you want to know that fueled financial independence. And so we're going to get into these top 9 reasons why real estate was central to achieving. And by the way, many of you may have heard of the FIRE movement. This is based on a book about people who wanted to focus their finances to be able to retire early. So they came up with the acronym FIRE, Financial Independent, Retire Early. So let's talk about those factors, like you said, Skip. Rising rental demand. Increasing rental demand made real estate investments more lucrative this year. People who are in the real estate market since the pandemic have benefited tremendously, especially in high growth urban and suburban markets. Prices and interest rates are rising, and those were the big impetus, the main force behind it. A 1% rise in interest rates reduces the buyer pool up to 15%. And that's why being aware of these trends and knowing how to position in these trends is so important. So be there when the rates start to come down, because that's what a lot of the experts are expecting. We just had one more little cut there, and work your database accordingly. And speaking about that, how it affects housing. Patrick, let's talk a little bit about housing and hacking housing opportunities.
Sure. And thanks, guys, for taking the time out, as always, for this wonderful podcast. One comment I'd like to make also, Eric, as we watch that first trend that continues into 2025, rising rental demand, therefore meaning there are fewer buyers available on a national basis. All the more reason why anybody that's on this podcast wants to be first to the dance. You want to get to those buyers before anybody else does. And again, as we've always talked about, education is key. Outreach, constant marketing to bring them into your database is really vital. But Eric, you mentioned house hacking opportunities. This is something that I really didn't personally pay attention to, and I'm glad I was apprised to it. But there is a term out there now called the ADU, or accessory dwelling units. And if you think to good old days back in the 50s, when homes had cottages in the back, mother-in-law quarters, or rental units, it was vital to making ends meet in many cases for a lot of American families, and that they would have these cottages rented. Well, I know some of the markets I've worked in Southeast Florida, those were still the cases. They were built in the 50s, but then that kind of went by the wayside. Well, today, with modular construction and innovative construction design, there are companies creating pods, if you will, 2-bedroom, 1-bath units with kitchen facilities that are literally 400 square feet, the tiny home concept, if you will, that can be placed in a person's backyard, provided your zoning permits it, you've got enough room, and there's no HOA restrictions. But in many parts of this country, you can do that. And what that does, number one, it creates a potential rental income for you. So right off the bat, you can shave money off of your expense, or if you're an investor, improve your ROI dramatically with one of these things. Secondly, another huge trend, which I am very aware of, because I just lost my 2 parents in the last few years, they were both close to 90 years old, is the graying of the American population, and that the fastest growing demographic today is the 80-plus-year-old segment. And it's huge. I mean, when you look at the pie chart, or the growth chart of ages from the 1960s to today, it used to be the youngest, and then it petered out towards the top. Well, today, the top is the big part of that triangle. So another vehicle, and there are some tax incentives to that as well, if you place older folks into these homes for you as an investor. The cost of these is relatively affordable. If you're looking to flip properties, another great idea to put these into the equation. A couple companies, SG Devco, it's a company that's near and dear to our heart. We do home buyer webinars for them on new construction. And also a company called ModPads, ModPads, just to give you an idea of some of these things. Very, very innovative, though. And that's a trend in 2025. So the next trend, we're going to move to Mr. Skip Wiley, because you happen to live in one of these.
I live in the trendy city of Pensacola, Florida. Folks, for 40 years, I lived in the beautiful city of Boca Raton, Florida. And because of family situation for me, not because of economic situation, I decided to move to a different environment. Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County is 4.3 million people. Pensacola, smaller area, has metropolitan population of 500,000. Here's what's interesting. Why are people leaving states like California, Washington to move to other areas? It's primarily because of affordability. And when you move from an expensive area where I lived, where my property taxes were $10,000 a year, my insurance was 10,000 a year, and you move to an area like Pensacola or multiple cities in Florida outside Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County, and in every state, there are expensive cities and there are smaller rural communities. People are moving there because, number one, highly affordable. The house that I bought here, as an example, 500,000 in Boca Raton, Florida, would have been $1.8 million. So dramatic impact. But who's moving and why? Well, a lot of millennials are moving now because of affordability issues. Salaries have not gone up dramatically over the past 4 or 5 years. Property values have gone up significantly. And because of those changes and lifestyle changes, many millennials, other people that are moving, I'll give you some good examples. Doctors, nurses, people that make a good income, but they're just moving because of comfort, quality of lifestyle, less traffic, 1,000 different reasons. But examples, taxes, insurance, and home prices are much lower in a lot of the smaller cities. I read an article the other day. It listed the top 25 cities in the country for affordability and for people to retire, and the reasons why. And the majority of them had significant things for activity, outdoor activity, things that would cause people to want to move. Less traffic was one of the big issues. Portable professions like nurses, like teachers, it's easy for them to move. And to be blunt, a salaried teacher in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County now, as an example, has a difficult time affording to live there. These are the type of people that are moving. And finally, just one other thing that I think is really significant is what I consider, I can do everything here that I used to do there, and I don't have to fight the chaos of a large community. So for people who really like that lifestyle change, small cities all over the country are great places to consider for affordability, for comfort, and just a great lifestyle. So I'm going to turn it to you, Eric, because there's another issue that is part of this, and I think it's significant, and that's remote work. That fits into just the topic I just talked about, people able to work out of their homes. So take over.
Yeah, because you were saying, why is there that big move to these more affordable markets? And you were talking about, all the demographic reasons. But from a professional point of view, a lot of people now, they can perform their work remotely. I was out to lunch yesterday and I met a guy who's from New York who came down here just before the elections, and he hasn't gone back yet because he likes it so much here, and he's still able to do what he's supposed to do on a regular basis. That whole work from home movement trend opened up new possibilities. And ever since the pandemic forced people to, work remotely, I think it opened up a lot of people's perspective as to, number one, that they could, and then a lot of people want to do that. A lot of people are resisting going back to offices and so forth. And then you add in, for example, the real estate side of things, like all the vacation rental, what a huge explosion that has been. And it opened up the market to people who never would have dreamed about being in the rental property business until they saw how lucrative the vacation rentals were. And now, as a result of that, we're seeing something new come out on the horizon. You see this co-living where people are actually, and thanks to the cost and the rising inflation, prices, and everything, to adapt to affordability. First, to what Patrick said, people are looking at ways of adding income into where they already live. When I used to do a lot of work in California, and this goes back, 5-10 years ago, that's how they coped with the unaffordability of the California market is, they converted garages into apartments and they had ADUs. That's where I saw that, like 5-10 years ago. So I smiled. Now it's a trend here in Florida and probably going all over the country. So remote jobs enable people to shift to where they can have quality of life, where they can be close to relatives. There's a lot of different reasons. And the other thing is that now there's the sort of that gig economy was also born in the last couple of years. And so people are having these side hustles in addition to their work. So they're now having multiple streams of income in order to do that. So we have to adapt to that trend and understand how to figure out their income. We got to figure out what is the needs and the wants of our of our customers. This also is a great recruiting opportunity for people who want to do real estate. Skip's a wonderful example of a guy who had a 30-year career in South Florida, but thanks to remote working, thanks to all of this technology that allowed him to quickly adapt and, integrate into a whole new market. And so keep that in mind as you're talking to people. And here's the sort of the cherry on the cake, right? Because of remote working, fewer people are having fewer cars. There's probably not a day far off where many people won't even have a car because they often don't need to leave the house. I sometimes don't leave the house for 2 days at a time, right? And there's communities now that have, car share with, Uber making, transportation so accessible. Think about this, where if the average square foot of a home, for example, in some areas is close to $400-500, right? And then you take a garage, a 40 by 40, 1600, or 20 by 20, so 400 square feet times $400, that's $160,000. It effectively increases the value of people's homes now because it's their school, it's their work, it's their, where they live. And you add in saving time, no office rent, childcare, pet care, all those other things. It's very easy to see that understanding these trends could make you a very valuable asset to people out there looking for ways to get into home ownership. So, and that leads me to creative options, Patrick. Let's talk about some of those.
It's funny, as we went through this last piece and the pieces before, I didn't realize I was so trendy. So I literally this week am going up to Skip's Marketplace to check out real estate because my wife and I would like to get out of the same rat race. Why? Because we work remotely. We're in the real estate business, but what we do is very much part of our 5-year career. I don't sell houses and show homes, although I do list them locally in my neighborhood, but that's not my main source of income. That's my side hustle, interestingly enough, helping neighbors and family with real estate deals here and there. What we do is we help real estate professionals across the country. So I am going to be moving to a lower cost area, closer to the grandkids, which is one of the other reasons that we talked about, and utilizing all of these exact same trends. I get it, folks. It really is the name of the game. But the other trend that we're seeing big time, in fact, the three of us just went through a training on one such program, is with creative financing. More and more people are becoming disenfranchised from becoming homeowners, either because of all the things we talk about, lack of inventory, unaffordable prices, they don't qualify for loans and all of these things, when in fact there are solutions. And for everybody on this podcast, again, the national trends are important to understand, but don't let them stop you from doing your business, because in today's marketplace, that one buyer that you can help because of these things that we're talking about, and do that once a month or twice a month, makes the difference in your career. But let's talk about some of these creative financing trends. Lease option programs. Not only are lease options still out there with traditional homeowners who may have challenges selling directly, but there are programs. One such program that we went on a training on, the company will buy the house for the buyer. It's literally like buying a house, but they'll do it for you. And it's a huge trend that's happening, and that home renter can convert into a home buyer. Very slick program, very cutting edge. Debt service coverage ratio loans. In other words, just the income component alone, non-traditional, not credit score driven, not necessarily driven by your normal tax return type qualification programs or conventional loans, but innovative programs. The ITIN programs, the individual tax identification number for national who doesn't have a social security number. All of these things are available in today's marketplace, and we're watching that trend grow dramatically, especially in light of the changes of our population in this country. Down payment assistance programs. Skip and Eric, in your respective markets, are there down payment assistance programs available?
Yep.
More than people will ever. A lot of the smaller communities have massive down payment assistance programs.
For sure. And then you talk about new construction with developers who also have it. Folks, you can get into a home if you know what the heck you're doing, or you work with a realtor, more importantly, that knows what the heck they're doing, any time in the market. And Eric always says it, it's not timing the market, it's your time in the market. So those are some big trends that we're seeing. Understanding these programs is very key, and then being able to relate to the home buyers that fit these things. Best way that we found to reach out to these folks, doing webinars. You get 50 people registered on a webinar. Some are ready to buy right now. Some are on that borderline, which are perfect for these programs. And some need an awful lot of work. And even those folks have to live somewhere. So you can turn those on to your favorite rental assistance agent that you work with on your team. Again, recruiting is the name of the game. So last but not least, the latest trend that continues to go on, in fact, this has been a trend year in and year out, it just changes, is technology. Skip?
You know, Patrick, my area of expertise is everything but technology, but I'm going to share with you, even an old dog can learn massive information through technology. And AI has been a remarkable tool for me personally. It's saved countless hours in helping us develop our platform, creating flyers and marketing material. And that will only get better and better and better over the next 12 to 24 months. And part of what we do at the 5-year career is coach people on how to use AI and other tools such as automated systems. And my favorite automated system is what's called the funnel. And part of what we do in our webinar program, and those are webinars on first-time home buyers, investors, affinity marketing, and all of the topics that we talked about today, we'll be adding webinars. But a funnel is a tool that nurtures a client. And with the right funnel setup, and we partnered with a company recently to really help us polish that model so that we can create the most important thing that a real estate agent needs in order to be successful, and that is leads. We actually do the funnel system that we have also coordinates calendars, and CRMs are all built in the same platform. We call it a do it for you platform, and a cost-effective way to create the most important thing that we talk about all the time on our podcast, which is leads. Leads are the lifeblood of every business, but especially the real estate business. So we want to encourage each of you to attend one of our webinars. Patrick, I don't know if you have that up on.
It's up on the screen right now. So take a picture of that QR code up there. You can register for our next webinar anytime throughout the year.
And we are now expanding our webinar series to every single week. We'll be talking to consumers. Consumers create leads, and we'll be doing that on new construction, first-time home buyer, and investor. 4 times a month, you'll be able to participate. So we encourage you to join us on one of our webinars. Learn how we get last year over 1,000 people that registered to attend one of our webinars. About 1 out of 20 of those people are immediate buyers. And it's a great way for you to have a successful 2025. So definitely register and join us.
And
That's
that
our
was
webinar for
basically,
today.
I would say, one of the prime reasons why you made that transition from South Florida to North Florida so easy, so friction-free, because you were able to not only get, in front of a bunch of people, but to become a local recognized expert in your market, because you were conducting these educational pre-construction first-time home buyer workshops that, I have a little saying that says that it's not the big that eat the small, but the fast that eat the slow. And to your point there with the technology and all the things that we're talking about here, that's why the 5-year career is more possible today than ever before. Back to you.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. You mentioned a topic, Patrick, you mentioned it also. 90% of my activity from moving from 4.3 million population to 500,000 is webinars. Every single sale that I've created in the local market has either come from a webinar or a person who has already bought a house, who's referred another person to watch a webinar. Webinars are powerful tools, very affordable for anyone watching us on our weekly podcast to be able to learn about it first and do them second and create massive leads in 2025.
Thank you. Real quick on that note too, is that, what we're also learning is with these webinars, if you do one as a real estate agent and do one with us, we'll showcase you. That video can be multi-purposed in so many ways. It can be chopped up into little shorts that can be put on your social media, that can be put on blogs, that can be put on podcast. You can put them anywhere. And what we found is that we've worked with a marketing company to help us learn these things. So you'll benefit from all this, ladies and gentlemen, from all of the things that we're gaining. We'll pass them on to you. And I'm sorry for interrupting, Skip. It was just very...
No. Hey, it's really critical. I was about to say that, Patrick. Our new partner has taught us so much about how to polish the apple, so to speak, and how to make these webinars the most productive tool that any real estate agent can utilize in their local market to be residential investor expert in their local market. So with that, everyone, we want to thank you for being our guest today. I always want to compliment my partners, Eric, the automatic landlord, and Patrick, Mr. Go Vertical. You always bring a wealth of information to each of our podcasts. And I could not do this without both of you. I think you're tremendously bright people that help educate the real estate community. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. We're here every single Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Stay tuned for more exciting content each one of our upcoming episodes, and follow us on our YouTube channel. Again, that YouTube channel is at 5 Year Career, the symbol at 5 Year Career. And remember, the most important part of our webinar is not just to listen, but to do, take action. You know, I read something the other day. Crawling is the first step to running. You have to get up, you have to take action, and you have to do the things that we talk about each week on our podcast in order to gain success. And remember, the 5 Year Real Estate Career is a reality for those people who want to run with us. We'll see you next week on our next podcast. Thanks for being with us.